the Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever.
And welcome. You are watching, listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. With us today is our good friend Darryl R. Schoon, and we're talking about Darryl's new book, Docking at the Mothership, Notes on Going Home. And Darryl, you've written a lot of books before. This one's probably your most interesting one. Hey, tell us what led to this work.
It sort of erupted out of the blue last year. All right. And before I got into money, Kerry, and I started studying money in the 1990s, I was into metaphysics, wondering what is the big picture. And my question about life was, what is it? Just like it was about money. All right. And the questions I had about money, I answered for myself. And I was able to explain it in such a way that I got quite a following on the web, on my writings on the economy. And I was able to predict the economic collapse into a year before it happened. All right. And what I want to point out is one of the reasons I was so accurate about my prediction is that when I wrote my book in 2007, I knew that the Fed had already started raising interest rates in 2006. My study of money had led me to believe now what we've got, what we call capitalism, is an economy based on circulating credit and debt. And in a free market economy, supply and demand is the critical factor in prices. In a credit-based economy, the cost of credit and the supply of credit is the determining factor in the economy. And I knew that after the dot-com bubble had collapsed in 2000, the economy was going into the toilet quickly. It was so huge. So what the Fed did, they had to reliquefy. So they slashed interest rates down to almost 1%, all right, and started giving money basically away to float the subprime, what became known as the subprime property bubble, all right? It was clearly a bubble. And I knew it was, and I knew why they had to do it. I knew they were forced to. Okay, they didn't know what they had to reliquefy, or we're in the drink. We're headed for another Great Depression, and they knew it. So they slashed interest rates. They started giving away money free, and everybody thought this was great. I mean, you buy a house in 2004, you sell it a couple years later, and you're set. Okay, but I knew it was. So when they started raising interest rates in 2006, I knew the game was over. All right. Well, Kerry, they started raising interest rates again this year in March. All right. Now, the liquefaction that happened after the dot-com bust is nothing compared to the liquefying of markets in 2020. Why? Because what happened, the markets just crashed after the dot-com bubble and money stopped circulating. Okay. But what happened when COVID hit, markets around the world, economies around the world contracted by 40 to 50%. The average contraction rate was 45%. That's a heart attack space, Kerry. That's not like a fibrillation. That's not like a slowing of the heart attack. That's a stroke, a massive stroke. Okay. So what they did, they gave money away for the first time. People got checks.
Helicopter money, right?
Because that was their back pocket solution. Real helicopter. We thought, you and I thought that what Bernanke did after 2008 was helicopter, with QE. Maybe that was a helicopter. These were C-47 with supply, just pouring out from the sky.
B-52s.
B-52, yeah, it was B-52 money, all right? So what happened in 2021, that money hit the street and prices went in a straight line from January to December up, all right? Now, the central bankers saw that and it scared the bejesus out of them because what they say is we've got to contain inflation. What they're really afraid of is hyperinflation. All right, because they had never seen it was in other words, if those prices kept rising, it was going to destroy the economy. It was going to destroy everything. Everything. Your real estate markets, your stock markets, your bond markets. When money goes, everything that's based on that fraud is going to go with it.
Sure.
So what happened is I knew this year they were going to do it again. Okay.
Right.
But and I think as a caveat, Kerry, when we talk about what I wrote in Document the Mothership, I said a friend of mine, he's rich. All right. I know he wouldn't say that, but I know he's rich. All right.
It's all relative, right?
It's all relative. Okay. And he's in his late 70s, all right, like I am. Maybe, we're the same age. And he was a part of that original group at Marshall Thurber's Positive Deviant Network when I presented my paper in 2007 predicting an economic crisis called Time of the Vulture. All right. And so he was one of the 60 to 70 people that got a copy of what I had written before I decided to make it a book and sell it on the internet and get the reputation I got when I started writing articles. So I just told him I wrote another book, and he wrote back and said, I'll review it, I'll buy the book and I'll review it. And then he said, when I got my pre-publication copy of Time of the Vulture, this is back 2007, I didn't believe it. All right. I didn't believe it. He said, what happened a year later? I reread it. And I realized that what you had predicted was in fact happening. All right. When I presented my paper predicting the economic collapse, it's a 148-page paper. I really went in depth. Okay. Credit, money, silver, gold, central banks. I just laid it out there. All right. And the room, Kerry, I mean, the group that Marshall put together, the dues were $5,000 a year, and we met 4 times a year. Well, the only people doing that had that kind of money to do it. All right. There were unorthodox people, but they had a lot compared to the baseline, a whole lot of money to do that kind of stuff. And this was the group that I presented my findings to. And Kerry, that room was really uptight. When I got up and said, we're headed for the shitter, all right, those people had a lot of money. And they did not want to hear what I was saying. One guy stood up and he screamed at me. He said, give us some hope. All right. And I mean, it was the blowback on what I said was so intense. Martha, who she's the kind, she's not like me. She's, much better. We left there, Kerry, and she said, I don't care if we see these people again in our lives. All right. Because I mean, they did not like what I was saying. And a year later, it all started happening. I want to say, Kerry, that I don't believe that most people who read what I've written are going to believe what I say right now. Right. Even though you're because the approach that I took is the context of what I believe this is going to crash. Okay. I believe that this crash that we're about to experience is going to bring us to our knees. Mm-hmm. It's going to bring us to our knees.
All right. We're kind of crouching down already, aren't we?
But there's a difference between crouching and on your knees. Mm-hmm. All right. That's a great metaphor. We're crouching. But I believe when this is over, the ones who survive it are going to be on their knees. And what I believe is this: what I've written is going to help those people on the way down. Everybody who's listening to this has already done their gold, silver, money. They've done it. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, they've done it. I'm not going to tell anybody, to arbitrage, silver's going up faster, gold. That doesn't matter. People are going to have made their decision. They've done that. And ever since I started writing in 2007, my articles have always ended up with a tagline: buy gold, buy silver, have faith. All right. And in my book, Time of the Vulture, Kerry, I wrote about faith. And I said, it's the hardest thing of all.
Mm.
And you should start getting some now while they're getting still good. All right. That was 2007.
Sure.
All right.
Remember.
Now, what I believe is this, is that our whole framework of reality is going to be shaken. The economic system is the foundation of our present way of being. All right, of our presence all around the world. Even the countries that tried to go against it, communist countries, have central banks. All right, that central bank is the viral load of the Ponzi scheme. All right, I don't care what your intent is, how unfair you think it is, or how advantaged you are. The central bank is the core of the manipulation of money and the destruction of productivity and the indebting of the whole planet to the benefit of the bankers. All right, we've gotten to the point where that whole thing is collapsed. What my book is really written about, when you go into my book, the second part of my book talks about money. A lot of my writings over the last 10 years. I understand this game. All right. And when you read it, you're going to understand that I understand it. What most people aren't going to understand is the front part of the book. The front part of the book, which I make the introduction, is what I consider the context of this.
Right.
And I think most people don't understand it. But they're going to, Kerry, I believe that that book is going to be helpful in the next 3 years as we move from a crouching position to our knees. All right?
How long is this going to? So you think in the next 3 years all this is going to unfold?
Yes, I believe that we are. You and I have been talking a long time. All right, about this.
10 years.
And we both agreed that once you see its vulnerability and fragility, the tendency of those who see it is to think it's imminent. Okay, I moved to Tucson in the year 2000 from the Bay Area. And I remember driving around this place. Kerry, I was deep into this stuff. All right. I mean, I saw it happening. And I'm driving around, and they've got some very nice homes in the hills in Tucson. All right. Because I was going, where the hell are the people? Because everything seems so weird in Tucson. And I finally found, where the nicer homes are, because I like looking at the houses. All right. And I driving around, and I go, man, these people are just, I mean, to me, it was imminent. Imminent. All right. So granted that we have seen this and believed it was going to happen before. One of my lines was, which Marshall laughed at, was, someday we're going to owe an apology to Chicken Little. All right. Now, I think the time for that apology is coming real soon. Because, like I said, when I wrote my book in 2007 and said an economic crash was imminent, I knew at that time that they had already started raising interest rates. Okay? Now, what the deal is this? Raising interest rates is like sawing through a tree. Okay? Until you start sawing, that tree's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Once you start sawing, it's only a matter of time until something happens.
Right.
Now, what we call a soft landing and a hard landing is the tree falls and very few people get hurt. It's going to fall, but that's a soft landing. And everybody hopes for a soft landing. Including you and me. We don't want that tree to fall on us or the people we know. But Kerry, the difference between us and the rest of the people, you and I know the chances of that soft landing are almost nil.
Yeah.
We know how tall that tree is. We know, I mean, just last week, the Bank of International Settlements warned that the $65 to $80 trillion in the shadow banking system, where nobody knows where it is or what it's doing, is a real problem. We know, you and I know how big that tree is. So we know, hey, we know why people want a soft landing. We know that the chances for a soft landing are almost nil. Now, what you asked is, do I believe that the hard landing, the the big one is going to come in the next 2-3 years. Yes, because they've started sawing, Kerry. Now, where are they going to stop sawing? People are going, they've gone too far. They got to, they should have stopped sawing then. And other people going, they should have started a long time before and just, they want to, everybody's speculating on that sign that they're doing. All the boys know in the top, they're not in control of where that tree falls or what's going to happen. I was interviewed in 2010 on the rising debt levels in the industrial countries with 2 other people. One guy was Roland Amore, who is chief of investments at Oppenheimer and Company. The other guy on the panel was Professor Mark Blythe, at Brown University. And so they opened up the discussion, and those two started going at it. They started going at it. Roland was saying, we need less taxes. We need money to grow this thing, blah, blah, blah. And Blythe is going, these people are going to get hurt. You need that money going to social programs. They were fighting each other. Now, they started going at it when it went up. And the moderator, I put my hand up, moderator goes, Darryl has something to say. And I said, they're both right in a way, that the markets are this way and people are going to get hurt. I said, and we all have these thoughts about what the policy decision should be. And I said, my belief is the policy's decision are not going to be driven by your agenda. When we get there, when push comes to shove, the policy decisions are going to be crisis driven. You're going to be trapped into doing what you're doing. The Fed is going to be trapped.
Exactly what they're doing. Totally. Exactly.
And so that's exactly why I believe where we are today. And Kerry, I understand money far more than I ever thought I would or even wanted to. All right. But I have, because I dropped out of law school and went to the Haight-Ashbury, I have a totally different view of this game that we're in. All right. And I know that most people are going to find it very difficult, what I've written in the first part of my book, to understand because of familiarity, not because it's not true. I believe what I've written about, quote, what we call reality is as true as what we call, quote, money. All right. And I think that's why the credence I'm going to get is some people say, that's why I think it's important. And I've written this book in the next 2 years, and the metaphor is perfect. We are crouching. We're going to end up on our knees, and this book is going to help people as they sink lower and lower and lower, because it is hopeful. I am so nasty that, like the little kid in the bed, I see this hurtling bus as my only chance for freedom, Kerry.
Okay.
I think I'm telling you, hey, Kerry, wait. Don't.
What about the Great Reset? What about the Great Reset? Should we all welcome it?
Sure. That reset is going to be as unsuccessful as their SDIs. All right. The special drawing rights, SDRs that they had. Yes. That was their plan to save it. Kerry, they've got no plan.
Right.
The helicopter money was the plan. And when that didn't work, the B-52s was the plan. Yeah. Kerry, sure, they got plans. They got money. They're scared as we are. They're trying to keep this game, the Ponzi scheme, going. And I know why, because they benefit from it. All right. You and I, we're retail. And we managed to squeeze out a little here, squeeze out a little there, but we're retail. And my thing is, our hope, Kerry, is when this goddamn bus hits, and I don't know if it's going to go off the mountain or it's going to go into the wall or we're going to get hit on by a truck. I have no idea, but I know it's coming. I know it's coming. All right. And I believe, like Bucky Fuller said, when this economy collapses, the power elites are going to lose their control over everything. And finally, humanity is going to be free. So my vote, as crazy as it appears, is, and I got to thank Marshall for that. Marshall knew Bucky in the 1980s. Martha, in fact, was at a seminar where Bucky was at, and I thought Bucky was one of those, idealists. He loved people.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Bucky. He said there's enough for more. Blah 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 blah. Bucky, great humanist, genius, but a little unrealistic. A little unrealistic. Well, in 2008, Marshall had us read Critical Path. All right, Bucky's last book in 1981. Now, my degree was in political science, and I tell you, to me, it's all about power. So I'm reading Bucky's little thing, and this is what he said, Kerry. Bucky said, I made sure all my predictions were at least 50 years in the future because I didn't want to draw the attention of the power structure that would then perceive me as a threat. They would trot me out to speak at all their little things, and people found me amusing when I'd say what I saw happen. But he said, and he saw it. Bucky was psychic. He knew a better, but he said, this is going to involve the collapse of economic, political, and religious institutions. And he said, this collapse is being driven by the universe to transform humanity. Now, Kerry, that may or may not be true, but you and I are sitting there in the back of the bus talking to each other as we're hurtling down. And you just turned to me and said, Darryl, did you just say that we're not going to make it past the next curve? Yeah, that's what you just tell me. You're remarking about 2 to 3 years. All right, that we're not going to make it to, the next bus stop. That's what you asked me. And I said, yeah. And I said, Kerry, but listen, this is where we're, because I may be wrong. Like, I've been wrong about a lot of stuff, but I've been right about a lot of stuff. Okay. And I said, I may be wrong, but if I'm right, it's our only chance. I want to tell you something about that meeting where I presented my paper in 2007, Marshall's group. Marshall had us talk, a guy do a video conference with Dr. Philip Tetlock. Okay. He addressed all of us at that group. Tetlock wrote a book called Expert Political Judgment. Okay. He got famous for it. All right. And then he wrote a book now called Super Forecasting. All right. And Tetlock had written and done a test on predictive accuracy. And the way he had done it was, this is his field of study at Berkeley. In the 1970s, Kerry, he's a professor, and he wrote all these people, experts, scientists, pundits. How do you think the Cold War is going to end? Everybody has an opinion. I mean, if he asked us, you would have had an opinion. I would have had an opinion. Okay? So they all write back. This is a prestigious
Not the way we expected.
Huh?
Not the way we expected, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So 1990, everybody writes an opinion. 1992, the Soviet Union collapses. Boom, like the Twin Towers. Holy shit. I knew they're unstable, but look what happened. All right. So 1992 happens. He's now got all the answers and what happened. So he goes through and sees which ones were closer to it than further away. All right. And what he said was this: the ones who were the furthest away were the media people, the pundits. All right. Why? Because they didn't know what was going to happen. What they really did in their popularity was based upon voicing the thoughts of the readers. Okay. People picked their pundits. All right. So not on the base they knew anymore, but they agreed with them. All right. What he said was this: the ones that had the highest predictive capacity, and he explained it why. He said it wasn't what they thought, it was how they thought. Okay. And he said, basically, there are two kinds of approaches to what we call reality: the hedgehog and the fox. And the hedgehog is the ideologue. All right. The communist. All right. Or the free market boy. All right. Or the fundamentalist, Christian. All right. The Seventh-day Adventist. They all see the world from their own hedgehog, rigid structure, and they fit it into it. He said the fox It doesn't. The fox just keeps moving around, looking at the data. All right, it's this right there, moving around. He says those are the two extremes. He said the ones who have the highest ability to predict the future accurately had a combination of hedgehog and fox. They had a framework too, but they weren't married to it. They knew it, they believed it existed, but they they watched what was going on. Kerry, Marshall had us all take that motherfucking test in 2007. I got 0 deviation, the highest score in the
Really?
Yes. And they didn't tell anybody because I had gotten up the day before and said, we're headed for the shitter. You know? And if they had made it known that I had the highest score in predictive accuracy, that really would have put the nail in what they thought was their coffin.
Right.
All right. So that's all I'm saying to your listeners, to the viewers or whatever, that's what it is. I've got no more to offer. My writings, I think my writings on the economy are enough that they establish me as whatever, you know, at least an informed wingnut. All right. And my observations on the context of life make me a total wingnut to what I consider the mass culture, because it's so at odds with what we believe to be true or not true. All right. And what documented the mothership is I've married these two aspects of my point of view. All right. I'm not saying it's right, but Kerry, I think it is. And I bring up good old Philip Tetlock's, my score on his test, that I think it bears reading. I don't expect anybody to believe it, what is foreign to them. Because the way we all work, including my mind, is we only believe that which sort of fits in with our paradigm, you know, with our construct.
Normalcy.
And when it's too extreme, we dismiss it. I am presenting the confluence of two very extreme views. One, this is going to be a collapse from which we're not going to recover. Not that we won't recover in a greater sense, but the markets won't recover.
The system.
The system won't recover.
But
we're not collapse. The system. We're just in there in the back of the bus. You know? And it's white knuckle time. As we head into Christmas, I mean, I've got a little thing on my website, the Fear and Greed Index. I mean, Kerry, it's over towards greed now. I mean, people are feeling better. You know, they survived the drop in the Dow. They survived the S&P. You know, they survived this. It's starting to go back up. You know, how are they going to place their bets? Fine. Bear market rallies. This is going to be a bear market. The bear ain't going to hibernation. The bear may not come out. You know, the words, Kerry, that set me on this path came to me in 1991. And these were what the words were. In times of expansion, it is to the hare the prize goes. Quick, risk-taking, and bold, his qualities are exactly suited to the time. In times of contraction, however, the tortoise is favored. Quick only to retract his vulnerable head and neck, his is the wisest bet, when the slow and sure is preferable to the quick and easy. There comes a time, however, when neither the hare nor the tortoise is the victor. This is when the passions of the bull lay buried deep beneath the rubble of economic collapse. This is the time of the vulture. And the vulture feeds neither upon the stored up wealth of the bear or the passions of the bull. The vulture feeds upon the blind denial and ignorance of the ostrich. The time of the vulture is at hand. Kerry, I did not think those words up. They came into my head in 1991. And when I wrote them down, I looked at them and go, holy smokes. In 1991, there was no sign of a cataclysmic collapse.
No.
Nothing. You know, I went back and Googled, you say, oh, there was a slight property thing, but nothing. And we had not yet entered into the exponential rise in the stock market that happened in the mid to the late 90s with the dot-com bubble that Greenspan tried to shut off in 94. And he told he said he was going to raise interest rates. He got a fucking phone call from the White House or something. Shut the fuck up. And 1 month later, Greenspan made an announcement. This is not the policy of the Fed to pop bubbles with interest rate. He was told, shut the fuck up by the powers that be. But during that time, Kerry, I started studying money. I started looking at it. I had never taken an econ course in my life. And I found out money was not what I thought it was. The economy was not what I thought it was. It was a beast of its own making. Well, that beast is like Tom Brady's storied career. All right? I mean, Tom Brady was perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
Well, time does a lot of things. And we all know Tom Brady's last weekend was not what it was when he started out his career.
That's for sure.
And what I'm saying is we're exactly in the same place with the economy.
Yeah. Agreed. Hey, so, okay, that's a lot to digest there, Darryl. Always interesting speaking with you. You want to go check out the book, Docking at the Mothership, Notes on Going Home by Darryl R. Schoon. You find it on Amazon and wherever fine books used to be sold.
Used to be sold.
Yeah, they don't really sell books anymore.
No, they don't.
And hey, we're reading it in the middle of it now. Buckminster Fuller, the observations about him and the fact that he knew it was coming. I mean, I felt it 25, 30 years ago. I said, I can't believe that there's going to come a time when all of the corporations, all the great corporations will be bankrupt. And we're seeing it. And hey, I think what we're seeing also is that energy transitions cause huge upheavals in society. And not that I'm the super EV proponent, even though I own one, I'm not. But the energy, the way that humanity, seeks to grow, that source is going to change. And a lot of the upheaval that we're seeing now is a result of that, I believe, going from a more holistic thing. I think if we had followed Nikola Tesla 100 plus years ago, we would have avoided a lot of what's happening. But you can draw your own conclusions. Hey, if you got a question for Darryl, shoot me an email or post a comment to the YouTube channel. We'll get back to everybody. Hey, make sure you go over to the site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for your free newsletter. Darryl, always great speaking with you, and we'll talk to you again very soon, no doubt.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me on.